Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
Woohoo! Yeehaw! Scott Nichols here.
I like that.
Trying to whip it up just a little bit. Be as excited as you are.
Well, maybe, I have been told that I should tone it down. In fact, my old sister, I've shared this a few times since. She made the observation. She said that I sound like a talk show host. Not a talk show host, but like a game show host.
Oh, a game show host.
Yeah.
Like the old 70s ones.
Yeah, what was his name from
I'm missing it too.
Oh, my mind's drawn to blank. The Price is Right. Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right.
I can't remember the name of the guy who
Rod Roddy.
Yes.
Roddy.
That's right. Such a good show.
Unfortunately,
I could only see it oftentimes when I was just staying home from school and was sick, because it was during the day.
Okay. We would go in the summer times, get to go to my grandparents. And that was my grandmother. She would watch her shows.
Ooh.
And so, the soap operas of the day. And Guiding Light, Young and the Restless. And of course, before Young and the Restless was Price is Right.
Yeah.
And so it'd be hot. It's, summer in Kansas. And we'd be sitting there watching The Price is Right. And so it was kind of fun. Yeah. So I have some fond memories of that. And then watch it, as I got older, would go to college, wouldn't always make it to class because I was busy watching TV. And the best part was one day I was eating my lunch watching Young and the Restless in front of the big TV screen in the there in the student lounge. And one of my professors, I turned around and she was sitting there watching it a couple of rows back. And so I felt, okay, hey, I don't need to leave until she leaves.
So, such a great childhood memory there, right?
Sure, yeah.
The Young and the Restless, The Edge of Night, whatever those, all those other.
One Life to Live,
great ones. Fun little. I love trivia, so fun little trivia thing is that when Kennedy was shot in Dallas, they broke into the day's shows and they broke into the As the World Turns.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was As the World Turns that they broke into, I think.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, another one of those great soap operas where
as the world turns, so do the days.
Where some very strange plots take place.
Yeah.
But famous ones, right? Like
yes.
Luke and Laura from General Hospital, all those things.
Right.
Crazy shows.
Yeah.
So hey, I was thinking, usually I do that occasionally. Sometimes it's dangerous. It can be dangerous, and I fail at it often. But if you listen to the previous episode, you can see that I push through it, and I try to make sure that I think again and think properly. But I was thinking, usually you're the one introducing a topic.
Okay.
But I came across one that I think is good to share, and this one actually comes from I attend a local church in my area, and the person speaking one particular Sunday was talking about being a peacemaker rather than a peacekeeper. And, I think that's a pretty common theme throughout the Bible, but I think we think about applying this to our lives, right? What does this look like in your house or in your marriage to be a peacemaker rather than a peacekeeper? So I was I got stuck on thinking about this as a podcast episode, right? And thinking about, what is a peacemaker versus a peacekeeper?
Okay, well, what is?
Right.
Did you find an answer?
So I went for some just general definition, right, from a dictionary, just using an online dictionary. And they say a peacemaker is someone who brings about peace. That sounds obvious.
Okay.
Right. especially by reconciling adversaries, right? So people, being able to bring a couple of people together that clearly don't agree on something and coming to some kind of an agreement. Whereas a peacekeeper is someone who tries to prevent or stop arguments or fighting between two or more people or groups of people, just to stop it, not necessarily right to resolve it or to reconcile it, but just to keep it stopped and at a status quo.
Okay.
And so I started thinking, like, what does this look? What has this looked like in my marriage? What does this look like with my children? What has this? Have I been a peacemaker? Have I been a peacekeeper? Am I good at this at all?
Okay.
What does that look like? And I just kind of wondered if first if you had any thoughts on this on that topic so far, and then we can see kind of where this takes us.
Well. Wow, that's actually a really good question of what are you? Are you a peacemaker? Are you a peacekeeper? I don't know.
I think a lot of the time I've been a peacekeeper, right?
Okay.
I try, my wife is upset about something, and so it just kind of I do whatever I have to do to just kind of keep that peace.
Don't rock the boat.
But never really do any reconciling, right? You never really reconcile with the full problem. So you kind of stay in that limbo of it's still an issue, but we're not going to talk about it.
Now that you say that, I'm thinking of my first marriage, which again, talk about failure. Wow, that was pretty epic. But there were times, yes, I felt like I had to walk on eggshells. And you don't say this, you don't talk about that.
Sure.
And if you're if that's in that environment where you can't say something, you don't want to talk, they're in a very foul mood. And whatever you say will set them off. Whatever you do will set them off.
Yeah.
As I'm thinking about this, that was her. So if you aren't saying anything and you can't say anything and you can't do anything in order to keep from a lot of fighting and arguing in the house, then does that make you a peacekeeper where you're keeping the peace per se by not instigating, by not trying to aggravate? But if you aren't saying anything, okay, then I guess that would be me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens. I mean, I have discussions with my wife sometimes, and I get the way I can get, and she in turn just says, "All right, I'm done," right? And it's just let's leave it at the status quo and move on, and we'll just it's a peacekeeping kind of a move rather than a peacemaker where the peacemaker's trying to reconcile, and probably both parties are going to learn something from that and then be able to move past that status quo and grow a little bit in the relationship. And I think the peacekeeper thing happens a lot, with our kids, that we respond in ways that it's like, we hear the phrase in business or even in school all the time, like that's I'm going to die on that hill, or that's a fight I'm not willing to have.
Okay.
And so those kinds of things are like die on the hill is maybe a little bit more authoritarian, and that might be a third option, right? So you have peacemaker, you have peacekeeper, and then you have conflict for conflict's sake. Sometimes, but back to the peacekeeper kind of a thing where you're like, it's just not a fight I'm willing to have. Now, maybe sometimes that's the case, right? Like in previous episode, I mentioned that, my daughter and I had this incredible fight over how to empty the dishwasher.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
Like the dumbest thing in the world. Empty it however you want, right? Like I'm just going to go watch some TV.
Okay.
And I learned, that's what I've learned from that, right?
Okay.
Like I would be more authoritarian sometimes when none of that was required. But there's other situations where it's like, I'm just sick of telling you to clean your room. So that's fine.
Okay.
Just whatever, however you want to live in that sty, you just go live in that sty, right? Like I'm not gonna
I always
not gonna
wondered,
deal with it.
how is my mom such an expert on what a pigsty was? I've always sometimes, I've thought about that and I go, oh my God, because she would. She go, my gosh, this room is a pigsty.
I feel like my mother probably just avoided my room altogether. But, that's why I had to learn to do my own laundry and things like that, so she didn't have to come get it.
Well, okay, so I did a quick Google search here. All right, and I just typed in Peacekeeper Peacekeeper versus Peacemaker.
Okay.
And when it popped up, boom, okay, wow, there's a ton of stuff on this. I had no idea, but it was it's talking about how peacemakers are bold.
Yes.
And where, peacekeepers are passive and peacemakers are bold.
Right.
Peacekeepers avoid while peacemakers engage.
Mm.
And I'm thinking about that, and I'm now applying that to many experiences. And what you're talking about, like here at work and all the different jobs that I've had, you're right. You focus on, is that a hill I want to die on?
Sure.
And if I think back to relationships, a lot of times Sherry and I we'll be at loggerheads. And there's a lot, there's been a number of opportunities over the years, blended family, having our mother live with us,
sure,
dealing with, just all kinds of variety of issues. And I would say that we've learned a better balance of when to be the peacekeeper and when to be the peacemaker. And I also, I got to say that it's also a male-female thing.
Oh, yeah?
I think that a lot of males are more peacemakers. And I say this where women's, again, and I can absolutely be wrong, and please feel free to let me know that I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of times women are more likely to be more of a peacekeeper. And I don't know if that's the way, men and women are raised. Of course, there's that book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, or maybe it's the other way around. Anyway, so my point.
I think you got it right.
Did I? Okay, good. So my point in saying that is, a lot of times guys want to fix the problem. Why are you being so crabby? Why are you going off? Well, let's fix this.
So, but is wanting to fix the problem, because my wife has told me many times, I don't want you to fix it, I just want you to listen. So, right.
I hear that too.
And I really try to take that to heart, right? Like, and just listen when I need to listen. And then occasionally I'll be like, is there anything I can do to help? But is wanting to fix it and jumping in and saying, I'm just going to fix it for you, is that really peacemaker, or is that just like taking control of the whole situation and discarding whatever the other person is thinking and feeling?
No, that's a good question. I don't know. Maybe so. Because here's the thing. One of the things that Sherry and I have worked on is timing.
Mm-hmm.
Because my timing is really bad most of the time. And I'm going to jump in with both feet.
Only with some things that you say now. Right.
Oh, yeah. That is, I suffer from foot and mouth disease. And in the classroom, I have done it more than, if it didn't happen so often, it would be awkward. But
I think it's just that you have so many great thoughts going on in your head.
Is that what we're going to go with? Okay, let's go with great.
Sometimes they slip out early and unedited. Yeah, it's okay.
But no, to your point. Okay, and this is where I was kind of going with this before I kind of derailed myself. But the idea that I need to, instead of knee-jerk reaction, jump in, as you say, solve the problem. And, Sherry says all the time to me that the same thing that, your wife says to you. just shut up. I don't want you to fix the dang thing.
Right.
I just want you to listen to me complain and bitch for a little bit. So just shut up.
Everybody needs that.
Yes.
Right.
And so I'm learning to get better. I'm a long way from getting there. I don't want to say I'm anywhere even close. I might be in the parking lot to the ball field to getting there, but I'm getting a little bit better, because that was one of the problems in marriage number one.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I felt like I wasn't listening to her, and I would create a lot of fights by trying to be bold peacemaker and solve the problem. And it's kind of like,
Sure.
no. And that created then a whole nother set of arguments and made things really, really uncomfortable. And so now when we have an argument, I think both Sherry and I, a lot of times when something's just, it's boiling and it's about to be Mount Vesuvius explosion kind of thing, we both kind of go to our separate corners, ding, ding, ding. And then it'll be a day, maybe a day and a half will go by until we're both lower our emotional stance. And then it's kind of like, okay, I was thinking about what happened yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where I was coming from and why I was reacting, because this is what I was hearing. And it's why I did what I did.
Sure.
And I think I'm wondering, is that being a peacekeeper at the time to be a peacemaker later?
I think part of the key in being a peacemaker, of course, it's easier to be a peacemaker when you're the third party, right?
True.
And there's two people going at it, and you can kind of mediate the situation. It's a little bit harder to be the peacekeeper or peacemaker when you are one of the parties that needs to develop the peace. And so, but I think that even if it's just two of you and you're trying to make peace, it involves you kind of stepping back and seeing the other side. I also think it involves not being personal about it, right? It's not like you can't get personal, because then you're judging. It brings on judgment to the other person. And I certainly am not going to want to make peace with you if you just think I'm dang wrong all the time, right? And my position in the argument is just so far out there and wrong. It's going to be much harder to make peace.
Okay,
And so, without attacking the other person, without being personal about it, we're just kind of getting to facts of the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we both teach government, and we talk about facts and courts and
True.
all that stuff. I mean, facts are important. They can cut through to the truth, and doesn't have to be personal. And so, oftentimes leaving out that, I think would help.
No, and I think you brought up a good point. It is easier when you're third party. And I guess that's what I'm looking forward to in being a counselor, is being a third party, because when you have a stake in the outcome,
yes,
it is harder to take that step back. It's harder to not be so emotionally involved. But at the same time, I have watched myself, I go back to what you said earlier, is that a hill you want to die on?
Sure.
And I keep asking myself that very question. What is the outcome? Because there was a time in my life where it was every hill is going to be, this is going to be Custer's last stand right here, baby.
When you're young, every battle is an important one. And the older you get, the battles are less and less, less and less impactful on your life. I mean, in fact, if you make it into a battle, it's more impactful on your life than if you just let it go sometimes. And so there is that.
Sure.
But there are still things that we need to work through. We can't just put aside.
Like what?
Things in marriage. I mean, if you think about money issues, right? Like if somebody has one of the parties has a spending problem,
Ooh, yeah.
We've got to have that. And in my house, that's me. My wife is super frugal and doesn't spend money. And so, I'm the problem.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I called her one day and I said, by the way, I'm buying a truck. Is that going to be okay? And she's like, as long as you don't put it in my name. So, and the truck has grown on her. She loves the heated seats, so it's all good. But
because we need that in Texas, heated seats.
when you're spending money that it's not agreed to, that can cause a lot of tension, and you can't just necessarily push that aside because money is one of the things that breaks up marriages. It's one of the top things.
True.
And so there's certain things you can't, you can push aside how to empty the dishwasher.
Okay.
You can't push aside money or things like that, or if there's some kind of problem in the relationship, there's all kinds of major issues, right? Like infidelity or flirting with other people or any kind of you can't put those things aside, but you have to find a way to work through them, and oftentimes that's going to require a third party, right, to help you make that peace. Right, to help you come to a resolution on that. But I think more of the everyday things, like, are we fighting with our kids just to fight with our kids, or are we being more of a peacemaker and helping them see what the issue is and work through it?
As I hear you talking, I'm thinking of something that we have said on this podcast many times. Bryce was really good about it. And I truly do understand and get it. But listening and the idea of, and I try and I fail a lot, but I'm trying better, more listening to understand versus listening to respond. And if I can listen, because when I listen to respond, I feel like I'm creating more problems. And when I'm listening to understand, then I can better understand, the other side, of what they're thinking, why they're thinking that, what they're feeling, why they're feeling it. And if I can kind of put myself in their shoes and see things from their perspective or point of view, then maybe it makes it easier for me.
Absolutely. I mean, this is how diplomacy works around the world, right? You have to make the other side. The other side has to believe that you care, right?
Yeah.
That you have an interest in them getting something for their side, and in large part. And so, listening to respond isn't really listening at all.
No,
you're hearing what they're saying, and you're running it through your filter, and it's all about, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Whereas listening to understand is, put aside my feelings for the moment, and I need to understand what you're thinking and what you're feeling. As responding to things in a way. I hear you saying this. My wife is really good at this. In fact, she got complimented on it the other day.
Oh, really?
From somebody, one of her colleagues at work, when she employed this strategy.
Okay.
And they said, "Well, you are really good at making people feel like they've been heard, like you care about what they're saying." And that's what that is, right? It's, I hear you saying, right? So you're reflecting back and saying, this is what I think you're saying. Yes. And I'm trying to understand what it is you're saying. So please let me know. Did I get that wrong?
And that is something that,
let them clarify.
That's part of our training as a counselor. Okay, if I understand you right, if I hear what you're saying, kind of rephrasing it back to them,
right?
You're letting them know that I actually am paying attention. I'm not distracted. What you're saying is valid, which goes a long way then, I guess, to being more of that peacemaker.
Sure.
Because it's not that maybe just being listened to and understood is what we need, rather than to have the situation fixed, which goes back to both what your wife and mine have said many times. I just want to vent.
Yeah.
So I can maybe be a better peacemaker by doing nothing except listening.
Listening and reflecting back that you understand.
Man, I tell you what, that just hit me over the head with a hammer, because I know this, and as we're talking about this, I feel like a fireworks show is going off over my head right about now as I'm going, I'm really getting this.
And I think you can apply this. We talk about couples, right? Obviously, that's in a marriage. That's where you're going to be thinking about most of your conflict, and we don't often think about any kind of making of peace with our children. Parents often think, well, I'm right. I'm the parent, right? Children should be seen and not heard, or whatever that idea may be in your household. But we're talking about kids needing to be heard as well, right? And needing to be understood. And what we're doing, it makes me think of an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. I love that show.
Yeah.
I go back and watch a lot of these old shows, and I pull things out of it that are just that they kind of come to me at the moment.
Okay.
And as I was thinking about this peacekeeping thing, I saw this episode and I thought about this with children.
Okay.
Peacemaking, I should say, because they had a scene where their son Michael didn't want to go to school.
Okay.
Right. And so he was in bed. The bus is about to come. Their son Jeffrey's already ready to go. And, the bus is coming, and Deborah can't get Michael out of the bed. And he's not, so she gets Raymond to come in, and Raymond comes in, and he's like grabbing the kid by the feet, trying to yank him out of bed. And of course, he's hanging on to the headboard. Next thing you know, the Jeffrey's saying, well, the bus just left. Right. So the kid's staying home. Right. This is for the second day. And of course, this happens on the third day as well. Deborah kind of leaves, goes on a field trip with the daughter. And, Raymond's supposed to take care of this, and it's not working out well. And he doesn't go to school. And he has to have an interview on a phone that it goes messy because he's trying to keep the son from having fun. Right. Mm-hmm. This is your third day home from school. This isn't going to be fun. We're going to bring the hammer down. No TV, no video games, no donuts. He even made him eat 100% fiber cereal, right? He called it wood. So he makes this kid do all this, and then he has to sit down while Raymond's working from home. And just all of a sudden, in a quiet moment, the kid says, the kids picked on me at school. And so this is day 3, right?
Okay.
And he says, what do you mean? He goes, well, I went up to ask the teacher a question, and I accidentally called her mommy, and the kids picked on me for calling the teacher mommy. And Raymond's like, oh man. And it's like, there was never a question to see, what's going on? Why don't you want to go to school?
We're asking the wrong questions.
What is right? We're not even paying attention sometimes, and we just run it through our own filter, and you're wrong. I've got all these things to do. You're interrupting my day. Right? Now all this is your fault just because you're being a brat. And it turns out the kid was embarrassed to go back to school because they were picking on him because he made one little mistake.
Sure.
Calling a female teacher mommy.
Yeah.
Which at his age is probably something that's very common. So, we think we tend to overlook what the other party is feeling or thinking, and comes back to that, right? Understand where they're at. Why are they doing the thing that they're doing? See if we can understand, because maybe then we can work it out.
Show them a little compassion.
We can reconcile. And in the end, Deborah came home, they were playing those dancing video games where you dance on the pad, And she got mad, and she's like, so he's not going to go to school tomorrow too? And he's like, no, he's going to school. We resolved it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it came by accident, and at the with the child bringing it forward rather than the parent initially asking, why don't you want to go to school?
I think being a peacekeeper is super easy. But I think, and I can say from my own experience, being in that first marriage, it created so much conflict, for future conflict, because we didn't address and resolve issues when they were necessary and were small.
Right.
And they grew and they grew and they grew. And I stuffed down my emotions. And I did not handle them healthfully or in a positive way. And so over the years, by not addressing things when they were small, being too much the peacekeeper because of her, because Eric's mom was, I've learned, had a lot of mental health issues.
Sure.
And it created so many problems. And that's where Marriage 2.0 with Sherry has been much more effective, because we address things while they're still small.
Yes.
And so I think you, in listening to what you've said and, looking through, processing, and, again, when I pulled up, Peacekeeper versus Peacemaker, there was a ton of stuff. I mean, from biblical quotes to, the Beatitudes.
I'm sure
Matthew,
we could have a 50 episode. Thing on this.
But I guess what I came down to is I think you've got to have a mix of both. You can't be all one and you can't be all the other.
Well, and my wife and I have lived by this idea that to never go to bed angry.
Yeah.
And does that mean that all the problems are solved when we go to bed? No. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we've come to a place where we understand each other and we're not angry at each other. There's still an issue to be resolved,
mm-hmm.
but we're not going to be angry about it anymore. And we can, come back to it the next day a little bit more rational, right?
Sure.
When people have had time to think about it. And I think that's important. There's a few things though, kind of as we wrap up.
Okay.
I just, in looking through a lot of those ideas that you saw when you Googled,
yeah,
I found, there's always lists of things that they suggest. And I just want to point out a few.
Okay.
I'm not going to point out all, but there's some things that have been, that I saw that were repeated on these lists and these different articles in different ways.
Sure.
But one of them was to recognize that peace, right? A deep peace is possible.
Okay.
Like if you think that the person that you're having a conflict with, that you can't make peace, that you can't come to a resolution, then you're probably not going to come to one.
Okay.
So you got to recognize initially that it is possible and that there is deep peace that's possible, and that peace probably has to start with you.
Okay.
And so that's where, most of the articles say a meditation,
sure.
or if you're religious, some kind of a prayer,
mm-hmm.
things like that to refocus yourself. That you have to listen deeply to the other side. And we mentioned that
mm-hmm.
Several times, right? You've got to know what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and you can't just discount it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take that to heart in your consideration. That you have to be intentional about this. You can't just. This isn't on a whim, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't work in the episode of Raymond.
Mm-hmm.
It took 3 days.
Yeah.
If they were intentional about it in the first day, he might have been to school.
Yeah.
That day. Or at least the next day.
Okay.
So you got to be intentional.
Sure.
And the last one, engaging from a place of compassion and
sure.
wisdom. Not thinking about this as I'm going to win or I'm going to get you or I'm going to, right? You have to have some compassion, and that the other person has feelings and has thoughts and they're valid.
True. Very true.
I think, and that's kind of what I got out of looking at several articles.
Well, I'm glad you brought this up, because it is a common issue we have at home, we have at work, we have it with our spouse, we have it with our kids, we have it with our coworkers, because we don't get along perfectly with all of them all of the time. And
mm-hmm.
we always got that coworker that's just a real pain in the Batuski.
Everywhere I've lived.
Me too. And,
sometimes it's me.
Yeah, if you don't have one of those at work, odds are it's you. But I mean, it is conflict resolution is a necessary and important part of being a person.
Yes.
And if we can figure it out as adults, maybe we can pass it on to our kids.
Yeah. Ultimately, we all have to share this space, and if I've been married to my wife for 31 years. We were together for almost 2 years before that. Sometimes you got to remember, maybe you just need to come back to the basics of, why did I get together with this person, right? And remember that.
It's fair enough.
Because, that's important, and you want to share this, we got to share this space and time, and life can be better for everyone.
Amen.
All right. Well, I think we may have exceeded our time.
We did, but I think you brought up a good topic. So thank you very much. And thank you. That's all I'm going to say. I can't say it more or enough. So
excellent. Well, I guess until next time, I'm Scott.
I'm Ron.
And we'll see you later.
Bye.